Okay, well, if you say so, I will. I'm not used to it, but all right.
And
to my favorite has been George.
very nice. And you know what? Just to keep the mood there, because this is it's a special episode for us. And like I said, it's almost 2 years.
It's the 43rd anniversary.
It's a 43rd episode, and it's almost 2 years that we've been doing the show. And
yes.
I didn't want to spend a lot of money, but I thought just to, just for a little bit of, just to make it romantic. You know what I mean? Can we get some romantic music in the background, or?
Like a bunch, like that kind of romantic
It's a little
music?
bit, you know what? It's 70s, and that's perfect because we're talking about Swamp Thing, right?
Yes. DC has started just so everyone knows, this is the Watchmen episode. Not everyone's heard of that movie or comic book, but DC now has a campaign for people to come into a comic store that have seen the movie or read the comic. It's called After Watchmen, What's Next? So the idea is, if you enjoyed the movie or if you enjoyed the comic and you don't want to read Vision and the Scarlet Witch, there is something for you. So they've got 5 issues. We're going to review 2 of them today. One of them is Swamp Thing 21 by Alan Moore, Steve Bissette, and John Totleben. So I gave it to Tom, if you want to start us off.
I think what was great was I'm reading this and going, man, this is like the first issue, maybe. This is like an introduction, and it is. It's the first issue.
It's actually not the first issue.
No?
You know what?
It's for dummies like me.
No. What it is Swamp Thing had been around for 10 years.
It's an intro.
Yeah.
But Swamp
Yeah. Let me set it up really quick. When Swamp Thing was introduced, every superhero has an origin. His origin is that a scientist was working with chemicals near the swamp. There's an explosion. He turns into Swamp Thing. Alan Moore became the writer with this issue.
House of Secrets, issue number 92.
Yes.
Published in 1971.
Okay.
First appearance of Swamp Thing.
Yep. Now, Alan Moore comes in about 10...
That's what I got.
It's a supercomputer.
Yeah. But Alan Moore comes in 10 years later, and he has a little bit of a revision. So with this story, you find out, spoiler, that what actually had happened was the consciousness of Alec Holland somehow got mixed in with the plants, so that the plants now have memories of Alec Holland, but it's not actually... It's basically a plant that thinks it's Alec Holland, not Alec Holland turned into a creature.
And he realizes it toward the end.
Yes, exactly.
And goes berserk. To me, the first thing I noticed was the artwork was unlike anything, even the last show, the first show I came on here. It's something as a book, I'm used to enjoying the writing, but that artwork was crazy. It looked like, it was so scribbly and so, I don't know, it seemed like you were looking at it through a window, like it was a look back, quite honestly. So it seemed like, is this a first issue or is this a look back? But the artwork jumped out. It seemed to me, now you guys I hope I don't offend, right? It looked very simple. It looked like, oh, this is like the old way they used to draw comics, because it was like, there was no gradation that I could tell in the colors. It was like blue. The guy's shirt was blue. It was the same bright bolt throughout the whole, right? And but it was attractive. The printmaking, it reminded me of like poster prints from like 16th century, or like nice artwork. Yeah, so there's something about it that it was gorgeous. It was very nice, and the greens in the Swamp Thing, when he actually comes back to life, when he gets heated up there, I was taken with the artwork unlike anything else you've had me read, quite frankly, including the Watchmen. So it totally stopped me and made me really pay attention to this Swamp Thing story.
Now, the thing with Swamp Thing really has a cult following. Yes?
Louder.
What? Yes.
Swamp Thing. When Swamp Thing came out in the 70s, and it was really, a lot of it had to do with drugs. It was.
Did it?
It was 100% drug-related comic book.
Well, the idea was that, he would produce these fruits.
Yes, and they would eat the fruits right off of him.
Eat them.
Yes, and basically Swamp Thing was a living
vegetable organism
and produced different fruits, and people would pick it off of him and eat it, and it was like an LSD kind of. People would go into like trances.
If you've ever had like a grapefruit, that's what you're talking about, right?
Like that.
Right out, right?
Yeah. It's like, that is so sour. Whoa. So, I mean, anyone at home, Exactly. So the really weird thing is, like, everyone knows Superman, everyone knows Batman. Swamp Thing is like a really, not even a B character, he's like a C character, but has a great following. It's like a very niche kind of cult.
It is, and they used that at that point when Vertigo first started off and Alan Moore first got into comics and did that sort of thing. You got this where they started to use sort of underground artists, and when you're talking about the art form, right, like it being almost like a throwback to something else and it being really rough around the edges, that was something that they employed at that point to get people to think of it more as an art form. It was almost forced in some sort of way where they were like, well, this can be sketchy or this can be whatever, and Alan Moore really brought that in there and brought in all that sort of like the idea of thinking of, well, if you were some sort of swamp thing,
Yes.
well, how would you get laid? You know, and it had that kind of like, it had that aspect to it. And the first issue doesn't have all that in it, but it gets to that point. And it's really, really well done. And that led to a revolution in comics to a degree.
Yes.
And Alan Moore, I think, almost did that by accident. Like, I don't think he even planned that. He just more was looking at like his English training in school and whatnot and doing like...
He was the first British writer to be hired in America. He
Yeah.
started the British invasion.
And it was very much like, you know, the Iliad and whatnot, and like the sort of idea of like exploring the Moby Dick thing and applying it to Batman and whatnot. Like that was kind of...
I'm confused.
All right.
Right there.
That was Grease, but
Oh, yes. Alan Moore, same guy. In case you guys at home were wondering, or the viewers here, Alan Moore, same guy who wrote Watchmen.
yes.
It may be out in theaters. It's that little movie that could, kind of like Fog. You know what I mean? It's that little movie that could. Let's go to break, come back, talk about Watchmen, and
Transmetropolitan.